Nun we nangil wa Seereer Radio o ñoxur no Seereer fop.
Dubi seduk Seereer Radio o sorki Seereer ci jen.
Vous écoutez Seereer Radio, la voix de la communauté Seereer.
You are listening to Seereer Radio, the voice of the Seereer community. Welcome to Seereer Radio. You are listening to the Open Mic Show with me, Tamsier Joof. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, who is the presidential candidate from the Gambia Citizens Alliance Party. And Dr. Ceesay is by far one of Gambia's most prominent academics turned politician. He has managed to stir up a lot of interest, especially among the youth, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show. But before I bring him on, I just want to give a brief background of my guest, and that is Dr. Ceesay, who I've got on the line. Dr. Ceesay was born in Brikama, but spent some of his teens in Sierra Leone prior to moving to Sweden. In Sweden, he acquired a bachelor's degree in political science and then moved to Scotland to pursue a master's in African studies at Edinburgh University. Throughout his academic career, he has authored numerous papers relating to Gambian and African politics. In 2010, following his return to the Gambia, he secured a job as a political science and African studies lecturer at the University of the Gambia. He has won numerous awards and recognitions over the past few years, including the Most Influential Young Person of the Year and the Pan-African Humanitarian Award for Excellence in Social Leadership and Community Impact. In 2018, he was arrested by the Gambian police for an interview he gave to the Voice newspaper, where he stated, and I'm paraphrasing here, long-term security will not be restored in the Gambia if President Adama Barrow does not win the trust of the Gambian army. He was charged with incitement of violence, but released the following day with all charges dropped. Since then, he has become President Adama Barrow's most ferocious critic. In 2020, he was successfully elected as the Citizen Alliance candidate to contest the December 2021 Gambian Presidential Elections. Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, welcome to Seereer Radio, and thank you for joining us on Open Mic.
Thank you, Tamsier, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Let's just get into it. I've got a couple of questions that I lined up for you. I'm sure the listeners would be interested to know a little bit about you, and that is actually how I'm gonna start, just to get a little bit of taste of who you are as a person, for the benefit of the listeners who will be voting in the December 2021 presidential election. So my first question is, in an interview that you gave to Alhaji Mane from the Standard newspaper in November 2019, you stated your ethnicity as Mandinka. Is that correct?
Yes, but I started by saying, first of all, I'm Gambian. But because Gambia is a country where socially people are compartmentalized to tribes. So therefore, I was born as a Mandinka. Yes, I'm a Mandinka.
Yes, you are Mandinka. Right. Yes, that is correct. You did have to preface it by saying that you are Gambian first. So that is correct. Yes. Yeah. And both your parents Mandinka?
My father is Mandinka. My mom not Mandinka. My mom is Limba and Fula.
Your mom is what?
Limba and Fula.
Limba and Fula. Okay. And would you classify yourself as a devout Muslim?
Yes, a devout Muslim, a practicing Muslim.
A devout Muslim. So you would classify yourself as such?
Yes, a practicing Muslim.
A practicing Muslim, right. And in that case, then, to what extent does your religious views and teachings influence your decision and policy making, Dr. Ceesay?
Not to a very much extent. Religion is private, and Gambia is a secular state, and we try to divorce religion from state. So my religious beliefs are not in any way influence my policy decisions, because Gambia is not an all Muslim country. We have Muslims and Christians in that country. When we make policy for every Gambian, whether you are Muslim or Christian.
Okay, and
so obviously my religion will not influence my policy decisions.
And of course, there are others who practice traditional African religions, of course, just to include them in the picture.
Exactly.
Right, okay. Now, I do understand that you have dual nationality, which is Gambian and Swedish. And in the interview you gave to Keba Jafang from the Chronicle in November 20, he put it to you that in accordance with Gambia's constitution, you will be unable to stand as a presidential candidate due to your dual nationality. Now, in that interview, you did say that you will be lodging an application to revoke your Swedish citizenship. Have you done so, and what is the outcome?
That process has started. It's a process that doesn't, decisions are not taken like that. So the process is on, but hopefully very soon it will be revoked. And all Gambian,
okay.
All Gambian people.
And have you had any, when do you expect to get an outcome from that? Do you know? Have you been?
I don't know. I don't have an idea. What I've received is that they've received the application and they've get back.
So they have responded to your to your application to revocation.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Now, Dr. Ceesay, could you tell us why you have decided to stand as a presidential candidate, and why do you think you and your party, the Citizen Alliance, are fit for the job and should lead the country?
We live in a country that for 57 years have been experiencing failed promises since independence. We've had a lot of potentials in that country. However, the potentials have not been transformed into ensuring that every Gambian lives a dignified life. So we realize that the potential of that country has not been aligned with the leadership that is needed to build that country. So there is that misalignment. Gambia has a wealth of resources.
So do you...
Yeah?
Sorry, continue. Sorry for interjecting.
57 years after independence, we realize we've achieved very little as a country, despite the resources. And we believe that one of the reasons, or the primary reason why that is happening, is we have lacked effective, innovative leadership. And we are here to provide that leadership to ensure we harness our resources and build a country for every Gambian. Those living in the Gambia now and those who are yet to come, that is the next generation.
But what experiences have you had so far that you think will have to propel you to take on this mighty task if you become president, of course?
No president has presidential experience before they become president.
But some presidents have managed businesses.
However, we have a team of experienced people in various fields. We have Mr. Dominic Mendy, who is our national chairman, who is the party chairman, who is an excellent economist, worked in government as minister before. We have people also in our party that are experienced. However, based on my own experience, I've led organizations. I've led the political science department, after the department for 5 years. I was the president of the staff association at UTG. I was president of Gambians living in Sweden at some point for 2-3 years. So we've got experience in terms of public service. What is important for a president is public service. And once you have experience in that, once you have the passion and the drive, I think, and the right program, and the Citizens Alliance has the right platform, that I can be able to excel in together with the team to build the country we want.
Okay. Now, you had a respectable career as a professor at the University of the Gambia that was educating our youth with the brain drain that is taking place all over Africa. I mean, your return back to the Gambia was a noble gesture. Why all of a sudden have you decided to abandon your youth in order to advance your own political ambitions?
Well, I did not decide to abandon them. When I was deciding to come to Gambia in 2009, to leave everything I was doing in Europe, to come and sacrifice and work at the university to prepare the young people for the task ahead, the task of nation building, by equipping them with the right tools. That was a sacrifice, and I was doing it for 11 years. And I thought now it's time for me to go for more challenges. I want to be part of that generation that will build the Gambia for today and for tomorrow. And at some point I realized that if the governance framework, overall governance framework is not right, nothing can be right in that country. University cannot be right. Nothing can be right. So at 2016, we thought things will change. It did not. So we thought now it's time for us to get into governance to build this country so the university can be right as well.
So, but that is still abandoning, the people who have depended, because obviously we need people like you in the education system, because the education is a very, very key, sector. Without proper education, obviously, the population is practically doomed. So we need people like you. We needed people like you. You actually did make the noble stance, the first noble gesture of just returning back, and then you abandon them. So
I wouldn't use the word abandon. I went for more bigger challenges for the Gambia. If the governance system is not right, the education system cannot be right. And I realized one thing at UTG: the quality had plummeted. by over 100% compared to since I started. I knew that we need a new governance framework for the Gambia so the irrigation system can be right. If you have one Dr. Ceesay at UTG, but UTG doesn't have the necessary equipment or the manpower and the technical power to ensure we build a Gambia, then there's no point in Dr. Ceesay wasting his time at UTG.
But why didn't why didn't you particularly your union or your organization association lodge send a strong letter to the Ministry of Education demand them to think about adjusting their budget? I mean, you could do that.
I can see you've done a bit of research with me, but I think you missed some point. Did you know that I led a strike at UTG on 2 occasions?
I am aware of the strike that you had led, yes.
Exactly. So that was it. I led the strike, the first ever strike at UTG, asking for things to be changed, asking for the government and the UTG to invest in higher education. So obviously, we've been working hard, we've been struggling at UTG to ensure we build a modern university. But however, we realize that the governance system is not right. We have to make sure we build the governance structure, build the governance system. And for me, it was right. For me, it's the time for me to go for more bigger challenges for the Gambia. I thought the Gambia needed me now in politics than at UTG.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you for that. I mean, there's a lot of crackling noise at the background. I don't know what is that. I don't know whether you can just stay put in.
It's all right. Yeah, it's all right.
Okay. Right. And in the beginning, in my introduction, I did mention your criticisms of President Adama Barrow. Now, I want to touch on that a little bit. I mean, in the past few years, also, you have made quite a number of attacks and allegations against Barrow. Just to quote some of these ferocious attacks, in an interview that you did with Panderi Bai from Freedom newspaper in 2018, you referred to Barrow as clueless and someone who has no idea about governance. And in your interview with Keba Jangfang from the Chronicle in November 2020, you accused Barrow of presiding over the most corrupt government the Gambia has ever seen in history, with very little regard to the plight of the population, with so much focus on his agenda to enrich himself at any cost, even putting lives at risk. Dr. Ceesay, would you agree that these are rather harsh words to use in the political arena and somewhat rather expansive, especially the claim that this is the most corrupt government in Gambian history?
But facts are facts. We don't sugarcoat facts. That is the problem with Africa. When we sugarcoat facts, and because we think they are harsh, we don't have to say it. We bury them under the ground. We have to do the Maslow syndrome. That is why we've been backward.
But Dr. Ceesay,
we need to say things. But this is the most corrupt government that we've seen since independence, and that is the fact. There is no better way to say it. That's the fact.
Why are the facts?
The facts are very clear. We've heard about the $35,000 money that went AWOL. We don't know where it is. We've seen about the contracts that they've been signing left, right, and center without following due process. We've seen now how public officials are building expensive buildings, driving expensive cars with nothing to account for it.
Then obviously you seem to have, excuse me, Dr. Ceesay, but you seem to have understated the Jammeh regime, because to call the President Barrow now, whatever anyone might think of him, to call him and his administration as the most corrupt government in Gambian history, I think that is overstating it, because articulately you seem to have understated then the Jammeh regime.
Well, you as a journalist have your opinion, I have my opinion. You think it's an overstatement, I think it is the right word. So we can argue about this until next year. We wouldn't reach consensus.
But you haven't provided me facts, Dr. Ceesay. You haven't provided me any facts.
I'm giving you the facts. That one, we have many cases abound. We have a $35 million case that was money that was transferred into the First Lady's account. Still, we don't have anything there's no accountability today about that. We've seen contracts being signed left, right, and center. We've seen drugs coming into that country, drug busts happening into that country, and nothing is happening about it. And also, we've seen since the coming of this government, we have not seen anybody tried for economic crime. You cannot tell me that since Barrow came to power, nobody has committed economic crimes in that country. We've seen the Jammeh Commission, how the white paper was selectively applied. All these so when we say corruption, it doesn't only mean monetary corruption. It means even in terms of administration.
Of course.
In terms of how you administer the country. So we've seen things that are happening now. Listen, I wish you read Malagan's report yesterday. As a journalist, I think you should read it, by Mustafa Dabo, saying that under Jammeh's era, the Gambia had produced the whole of Jammeh's period, 277 diplomatic passports for 22 years. Under Barrow, over 1,300 diplomatic passports. In fact, over 3,000 diplomatic passport books have gone missing in that country. You heard about diplomatic passport scandal in that country. You cannot tell me that that is not corruption.
But what I'm saying to you is this. I mean, how to call it? In light of how to call it, the numerous atrocities during the Jammeh regime, in light of how to call the number of thefts, and how to call it money and drug that you are complaining about Barrow. I mean, how to call it? It was more, I would have thought, in how to call it during the Jammeh regime. So I'm not disputing. I'm not actually making any judgment at all about how to call it that view that you aim to hold so dear regarding how to call it Barrow, but I'm just contrasting here between the Barrow administration and the Jammeh administration. And from what you are telling me, you seem to have understated the Jammeh regime and what was going on then.
I'm not understating anybody's performance. What I'm saying is that under Jammeh, at least people were charged for financial crimes. Under Barrow, we've seen how he was able to amass the amount of wealth Barrow is able to amass, as we've seen the things on his political party NPP. Jammeh did not amass it in his 4 years in power. Jammeh did not build a mansion in Mankunda in 4 years.
But Jammeh was a businessman, though, Dr. Ceesay. Wasn't he a businessman before he came into power?
Who?
Sorry, excuse me, Barrow.
He's a businessman before he came to power.
Wasn't he a land?
Being a businessman doesn't mean that you are a millionaire in the Gambia. We all live in the Gambia. That's why when they told them to publish their assets, they did not. They say it was not going to be public. We wish it was public so we know what they came with. In fact, that is why it started. The lack of accountability. That publish your assets at the ombudsman, and they said, okay, we'll submit it, but we'll declare our assets, but no, it's not to be published to the public.
But what
kind of government is that?
What kind of business was Barrow in before he came into how to call it politics?
You are asking me that?
Yes.
I think you know it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm asking you. What do you think it was? What was it?
Well, according to what we read, he's an estate. He was only an estate agent.
Well, and properties as well. So property is a high value asset. Wouldn't you agree?
What I'm saying, can you name me one property that is a Barrow has developed as a property developer? At least if you tell me TAF is developed property, we've seen it. If you go to global properties, they've developed properties, you've seen it. Name me one property that they said Barrow's company developed this property. Name me one.
No, but what you are doing, how to call it, you are comparing how to call it apple with oranges. Obviously, how to call it like yes, perhaps is a multi-millionaire, and how to call it even if you want to have a go at President Barrow, you might call him a low-scale property developer, but he was still a property developer and he still owned assets.
Name me one property is developed. Show me one that is developed.
I'm the one asking the questions, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay.
No. You don't know. If you ask questions, you have to ask the right questions. Name me. If you call him a property developer, I didn't call him a property developer. I call him an estate agent. You call him. I said name me one property developer. If you are the property developer.
Well, I own for example, I own a couple of properties, how to call it, like, and I do rent them, but I'm not going to be listing them, calling them how to call it this development.
Then you are not a property developer. You are a rent collector.
I'm a what?
You are a rent collector, not a property developer. If I give you my property to rent out and receive my rent, will you collect rent on my behalf? You not. What is it? Someone who develops properties, invest and builds properties and sells them or rents them. If you just take my property and you you collect rent on my behalf, you are a rent collector. I'm not.
You didn't hear the response that I gave you. I said I own them and how to call it. I'm renting. How to rent it out. And some of them I've built myself, and some of them I've built myself.
Own them, yeah. If you own them, it's a different thing.
Yeah, that's what I said.
But then you cannot name me one property in the Gambia that Barrow that he owned.
But anyway, how to call it? What the point of the matter is, how to call it? Not everyone is gonna have a name of how to call it, like estate, like Paradise Estate. Some of them haven't reached that level yet.
Nobody talk about estates. I never used the word in fact estate. I said they've developed properties. We've seen it because they are property developers.
Yeah,
they invest massively. They invest. They build properties. They either sell or rent them. Now, if you cannot do that, you are not a property developer.
Well, how to call it? We will leave that to the listeners to decide. Now, Do you still stand by these allegations? I just want to clarify. I mean, I believe you have, but I'm just wanting from the horse's mouth. Do you still stand by these allegations, despite knowing that or at least President Barrow has never officiated either overtly or covertly, as far as I'm aware, massive executions or secret executions, raping, kidnapping, and all that stuff. You still stand by these allegations?
What allegation?
They're calling him the most corrupt government. His government presiding over the most corrupt government.
You, as a journalist, should know that a corrupt government doesn't equate to a government that violates human rights.
But in this regard, you also went on to talk about how he is putting lives at risk.
What that means is that when you put lives at risk, it means that you don't give them the basics in life. You don't give them quality health care. If people don't have quality health care, you cannot go to the hospital and get cured. Then your life is at risk. If you cannot get access to good education to survive, your life is at risk. So these things are open to interpretation. If we say corruption put lives at risk, it doesn't mean that they go and kill people. No, it means that money to be invested in education, in healthcare, to buy medicine, train staff, buy equipment is diverted to people's pockets. You are putting lives at risk, because if you get sick, you go to the hospital. If there is no medicine, you are sick. If there is no doctor, your life is at risk. If you have an accident along the Kiang Road, there is no emergency response to save your life is at risk. If we don't invest in food and people go home, go to bed hungry, children, their lives are at risk. If children cannot get access to proper education, they grow up in a country where they have no opportunities and they take the back way to go to Europe, their lives are at risk. That is the context that you have to understand.
I understand the context that you are trying to make, but I want to, for me, it is quite, it seems quite rather expansive to jump, the Jami era and then label President Adama Barrow's government as, the most corrupt and so forth and so forth. Because
it is the most corrupt ever. There is no strategy to fight corruption. There is no goodwill. There is nothing. They don't even talk about corruption. They don't even talk. I've never heard the government talk about corruption. Never. They don't even talk about it.
And have you heard it from President?
The Anti-Corruption Commission is still dead. It's not out yet. They're supposed to establish one. It's not established. So obviously, that is my opinion. You can disagree with it. You can agree, but that is my opinion, and you cannot change it.
Okay, that's fair enough. But do you think it is a presidential thing to say, to call the leader of the country clueless? And I can understand you can offer criticism. That is no problem. You can offer criticism. I'm not that is your prerogative. And but to make some such personal attacks, like him clueless and all other stuff. Do you think that's overstretching it?
Why are you personalizing the clueless thing? I mean, if I call you clueless as a journalist, it means that you have no idea how to be a journalist. That was the context. See, context is key.
Yeah, context is key.
Journalists, always when politicians speak, you have to understand those things. When I was saying clueless, that was immediately after the transition. And that interview was about my assessment of the transition. And I said that the guys running the government in Banjul are clueless. They don't know what they are doing. And I still stand by it.
Okay, I want to talk about your arrest on 31st of January 2018. And you were arrested by the Gambian police in relation to the interview you gave to the Voice newspaper, where you said, and I'm quoting here, the presence of economic sub-regional forces in the Gambia will not prevent long-term security risk, and that long-term security will not be restored if the president does not win the trust of the army. Although I do not believe that there was any basis for the arrest, can you see how this statement, taken at face value, and the fragile state of Gambian security at the time, how that could have aroused suspicion that you might be calling for a coup d'etat or inciting violence against a democratically elected president, which led to your arrest and pending investigation?
My statement was twisted and politicized. That statement did not lead to it led to my arrest, but it is not the only statement that led to my arrest. The government in Banjul saw me as the sole person who was critiquing that government, holding them to account at a time when people were mute and thinking that nobody should criticize this government. I was the only one criticizing. I was the only one speaking out, holding them to account, and they were not happy with that. So that interview with the Voice was used as a pretext to try to silence me, but they failed woefully.
Who was trying to silence you?
The government in Banjul, obviously, Barrow and his team. Because
how do you know this?
Someone who was, they are the ones who arrested, isn't it?
Well, that is what you told the reporters, but particularly, were there any witnesses to that, other than the police?
The police told me that they got orders from above. Where is above?
Who told you this?
The police who arrested me said they got orders from above. In fact, they were supposed to bail me, but they said no, orders from above say you should spend the night here, you cannot be bailed. So where is above?
Well, it could be from the superintendent, the chief of police. It could be anybody, but you don't know whether it came from.
But the government sends this. Somebody came from State House to interrogate me for 4 hours.
How do you know the person was from State House?
He introduced himself as a special agent from State House.
He introduced
after the Interpol, after the guys in Banj at headquarters are ready. A special agent was sent from State House to interrogate me, and he introduced himself as coming from State House.
Do you know the name?
State House to interrogate me.
What is his name?
No, I'm not gonna give you his name.
But obviously, if somebody from State House coming to threaten you and
He did not threaten me. I did not say threaten.
Okay,
to interrogate me.
To interrogate you.
Me for 4 hours. And in front of the police officer, he introduced himself as an agent from the State House. He was sent to come and interrogate me in line with the case.
But I'm quite, Dr. Ceesay. I mean, you have been quite vocal and direct about your criticism of Jammeh on exactly what you want to say. Nobody has stopped been preventing you from saying what you want to say. You've been saying it. So all of a sudden, I'm quite intrigued that why you are silent on who actually this interrogator was rather.
What I'm saying is that it's not important who it was. What was important is that there is an agent, an officer, an institution. An officer was sent from State House to come to Banjul headquarters to interrogate me for 4 hours in line with the case. Who that person is, I'm not going to disclose his name to you because it is not important.
But we cannot verify that that person indeed come to so indeed somebody came to interrogate you from State House. We cannot verify that.
Well, you know the police officers who arrested me are still alive and they listen to the interview. You know I wouldn't lie if I know that they are listening. I have no reason to lie. So if the police officers who arrested me think that that is not true, let them come out to say no, Dr. Ceesay is lying. Nobody interrogated him. Okay. What I'm telling you is that I have no reason to lie about this thing. I have no reason whatsoever because there are proofs that an officer came from State House as an agent to interrogate me for 4 hours. And that's a fact.
Okay, thank you. Now, on 2nd July 2020, you went to Kanifing Police Station in support of Madi Jobate, who was, of course, charged with false information and broadcasting, albeit wrongly. On that day, you did give a press conference outside the police station where you said, and I'm quoting Mamadou Jawo's article from the Punch newspaper, "The current government wants to silence critics. The current status quo is clear indication to that. Hence why we are here today, to show solidarity and to send strong signal to the Barrow government that gone are the days where you will use state security as instrument to silence critics." Do you still stand by that statement, Dr. Ceesay?
Of course. My Jawara spoke outside the American embassy condemning police brutality. He got arrested and charged. We thought that was wrong. We're in a new dispensation in Gambia where freedom of speech is sacrosanct. People have the right to express their views. So why was he arrested? So we thought that we cannot accept that status quo to continue. People are there to speak their mind about national issues. So I still stand by the statement.
How do you know the arrest came from the top? From President Barrow's administration?
Which arrest?
Well, because that's what you are saying here, that President Adama Barrow must have had a hand in this arrest, including yours.
What I'm saying is that when the police officers arrest you, I was at the police station. I spoke with the SO at the station, and these orders are from above. And that's what they tell you. They are from above. And let me tell you something also. When things happen in that country, especially with security-related issues, you blame the government. It's responsible for the right of every citizen to be respected. If your right is violated as a Gambian, the government is responsible. They take full responsibility, especially in such bogus, fraudulent charges, like people speaking their mind and you charge them for inciting violence.
Okay, so but if Barrow is trying to silence his critics, as you say, then obviously he has failed miserably because you have been one of his strongest and most vocal critics, yet you are still here.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said they will fail. It will not succeed. And recently we've seen how he is attacking the media, saying how the media is biased and that the media does false reporting. Violent attack on the media. That's how it starts. That's how dictators start. They start to violently attack the media, just like Trump was doing in the US, putting the media as biased and reporting false news. The president doesn't do that. He don't attack the media publicly.
But you are still here.
Yes, I'm still here because why Gambians wouldn't allow anybody to violate Gambian rights anymore. That is why when I was arrested,
and you still have the freedom to criticize him as well.
Hundreds of students came to the police station to protest for my release because Gambians will not allow a situation anymore, a system anymore that will flagrantly.
The police decided to drop the charges because article we do not know this. I'm just going by what the police said. They decided to drop the charges, obviously, because there was no substance to the article, the allegations anyway.
No, that's not true.
But obviously there were article demonstrators that came to your defense. Yes, that is correct. But we do not know whether that was the trigger for the dropping of the charges and releasing
I can tell you that was the trigger because I was invited into the IG's office 6 a.m. and they told me that because of the fear of mass demonstration, which could be a security threat, they are begging me to go home and that they'll drop all charges because of that.
Do you think
the police came out to write later on, which is contrary to that, was a surprise.
Don't you think that despite the fact that article you are still here and you still have the liberty to criticize Barrow as you please, what do you think might have been your plight if this was the Jammeh regime?
That is not important. It's not relevant. What might have been my plight. We all fought in 2016 to remove a system, to replace with a better system where Gambians can exercise their freedom, their basic rights. So comparing what might have happened is irrelevant in this context. What we are saying is that in 2016 we voted for democracy and the rule of law, and that rights must be respected, and that is what we expect for this government to do.
No, because I'm going by particularly your statement that you made, particularly where you talk about particularly like President Barrow trying to use instrument to silence his critics, for example you. But you are still here and you are still making criticisms against the Barrow. Yeah, so what if that? What I'm trying to compare is, if this was the Jammeh regime, would you have been able to speak so openly and so publicly and criticize his regime?
Again, your comparison is irrelevant. It's not important. What is important is we fought against dictatorship. We fought against a system to replace with a new system. And I think in that new system, what we expect should happen. And that is what is happening, that people have the right to express their views.
Now, you obviously you blame the Jammeh Barrow for your arrest, and also the Madi Jobate thing, arrest as well. But it was the police who arrested you. And that is their job if they suspect there is a crime or there is potentially a crime, to arrest and and to charge and then pending investigation. That is their job. So why are you laying the blame? I just don't understand why you are laying the blame on Barrow when that is actually just the police job, just doing the routine work, really.
Because the police have to violate their routine job. They told me that we should be able to bail you, but orders are from above that you should spend the night here. So I go by those statements by the police that they are acting on orders from above.
Okay, now if when they arrested you act and as you just said just a few minutes ago that they decided to let you go, but obviously you stayed and you want I believe actually you tried to demand an apology and explanation and so forth, and obviously refused to go, so to speak. Why didn't you just go when they release you, and then if you want to take bring a case against the police, do so through your lawyer?
I did not tell them that I want an apology first before I left. I said I have to wait for my lawyer, so I know the implications of me leaving this station, this police. You cannot call me to a police station and violate my rights, my fundamental rights, and you tell me to go home. It's not going to be that easy.
Didn't you demand an apology, Dr. Ceesay?
That was later on when
a public apology.
Yeah, that was later on when my lawyer came, after I left.
So you did?
What I'm saying is that the time they wanted me to go, at 1 a.m., I wasn't going to go home. My lawyer had to be there to tell me what are the implications of me leaving that station. That was the issue. That is why I said I'm not going until my lawyer comes tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If he comes and tells me it's okay for you to go home, I'll go home. Otherwise, I'm not going anywhere.
Now, in that same conference article, the Madi Jabate thing, you went on to question the integrity of the TRRC, where you said, and I'm quoting here, "We have seen people considered to have committed heinous crimes in this country, and some people who bore the greater responsibility are put back into the system. This alone has undermined the integrity of the Truth Commission." Could you please clarify for us, Dr. Ceesay, exactly what you mean by the statement? And
it has the potential. It has the potential to. You see, the purpose of the TRRC is to find the truth, to make sure we have justice, and to make sure people, the victims, are compensated, but also those who bear the greatest responsibility are prosecuted and they are punished. Now, we are not saying that the TRRC is doing a fantastic job. But if the government is undermining the TRRC, then there's a problem.
How are they undermining them?
People back.
How are they undermining the TRRC?
By inserting people back into government, people who there are suspicions that they bore a great responsibility in violating human rights violations in that country.
Who are these individuals that you are articulating?
Well, again, I'm not going into personal names, but we all know.
No, I don't know. I want you to tell us. My listeners do not know. Tell us, please, because you made the statement. I'm just going by what you made.
Again, I will not go into names. I don't go into personal names. What I'm saying is that we've seen people who are suspected of bearing great responsibilities being recycled.
That is not evidence, though, Dr. Ceesay. As a scientist, with all due respect, you are a respected scholar and you deal with facts and evidence. Now, you are making this very, very very, very bold statement here. I'm questioning you about who are these individuals and that you refuse to name. But I'm
also telling you that there is ample empirical evidence to suggest what I'm saying, but I will not give you names.
Where is the evidence? Where can I find this evidence?
Well, you go and read the newspapers. You are a journalist. You know what's happening in that country.
No, but the journalists are not making it.
You as a journalist, you should do more research than me. You know what is happening.
But I'm not.
What I'm telling you, Tamsier, I'm not going to give you any names. What I can tell you for sure and with certainty, we've seen people who have been to the TRRC, who have been suspected of committing crimes, they are put back into the system. Now, if you want their names, go and find out. But I'm going to give you those names, unfortunately.
So, but you have the evidence, have you?
Of course, yes. The evidence is out there. It's not like it's a secret evidence.
Well, because I mean, there are lots of rumors. I mean, how to call it?
These are not
Dr.
rumors.
Ceesay,
These are no rumors.
I mean, there are lots of allegations going forward, but I'm evidence-based person. I prefer to see the evidence. I mean, I can take your word for it, but I do say that is not good enough, and especially for my listeners. But since you have refused to give names here on the station, if, for instance, as you said, you have the evidence. If, for instance, the TRRC call you for to give evidence as a witness, would you be willing to?
Who are suspected, and they are put back into the system.
Yeah, or any evidence that you might have.
I'll give, of course, yes. If they call me, I say that's by law, that's legal. I'll go and tell them who those people are.
Right. So you will be able, we will be willing to disclose it to the public, yeah?
Of course, yes.
Okay. Now, after your personal attacks or criticisms of President Barrow on Pandiri's Freedom newspaper in 2018, you referred to him as clueless. Is everything okay over there?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. Now, I'm actually in one of the personal attacks on the President Barrow, and he did issue a response in a press conference at State House where he said, and I'm quoting here, "I do not want to talk about personalities, but Dr. Ismaila Ceesay has been a critic. Dr. Ceesay has been a critic. But I asked this question and I'm still waiting for an answer. There was a president here for 22 years. The system was so bad that a lot of people had to leave this country to live in exile. And a lot of people lost their lives and a lot more jailed. People were afraid to come out and challenge the system. When Ousainou Darboe was jailed, we opened an application to advertise for the leadership position for highly educated people to apply and compete against Yahya Jammeh. You know how many applications we received? Only 3. Where were these people? Where were you, Dr. Ceesay, and why didn't you apply for the position?
Because I'm not a UDP member, and I'm not interested to be a UDP member at that time.
You were not a UDP, but particularly you were interested in politics, weren't you?
I was at the university teaching. I was not in politics at that time, and I wasn't interested.
Okay, but you had I'm going according to the interview that you gave with Keba Jabang, you had long had an ambition in had an interest in politics and political ambitions. So this thing did not start from within the Barrow administration. It's been there for a long time, hasn't it?
At that particular instant, I was not interested in that position. The people cannot be forced to apply for positions that they are not interested in.
Okay, that's fair enough. But where were you then? Why didn't you come out in the article with all the your political interest in politics? Why didn't you come up publicly to criticize the regime and speak out against it?
Of course, I was speaking up against the regime at the university. Go and ask the students. I was the only one who was organizing symposia, seminars at the university.
But do you see? But do you see Dr. Ismaila Ceesay holding seminars in small rooms under in the confines and comfort of a university and speaking out publicly to the people who need it most, especially in the country's darkest hour? Those are two different things, aren't they?
Well, what is your position in this case? What is your question? My
question is, you didn't come out publicly. And you had political interest, long had political interest, but you didn't come out, and you didn't speak up against the regime. You enjoy the benefit of because you were enjoying, which is natural. Obviously, it was not just you. Lots of people, in fact, they took it was more comfortable to keep quiet than to come out.
What is your question? That's not the answer. You are making a statement. Can you ask your question?
Where were you?
I was at university teaching.
So you didn't you didn't contribute towards the so-called struggle, as they say.
So teaching at university is useless as not contributing. Shaping young minds to prepare them for nation building. We have to understand why do you have to devalue that type of work.
But in your case, it's pretty different. It's quite different because you had long had political ambitions, and as evident now, and that's why you went to university to study it. And you had long been into. And when you came back to the Gambia, which was a noble gesture, by the way, and I would always congratulate you on that because not many people are actually returning back. And you went into the university and had to educate young minds. And but you already had that because you already confirmed that in your interview that you did with Keba Jabang. Now, that was during Yahya Jammeh's administration. Yet you kept silent. You didn't use your voice. You didn't use your high position within the education sector to come out and speak out publicly.
Timing was key. I was waiting for the right time. I did it at the right time. I didn't think it was the right time at that time.
Right. Now, I did see from your Facebook and Twitter pages, you seem to have extended a hand to President to Usaid Dabo from the UDP and Fabakary Tambong Jatta from the APRC and to Mama Kandi from the GDC for the purposes of collaboration and peaceful coexistence. Now, have you extended the same courtesy to President Adama Barrow from the NPP?
Yes, we wrote to every political actor in that country, the president included, all political parties. The idea is not to collaborate. We never wrote collaborate anywhere. Let me rectify that. We said to reach out to set the stage for peaceful elections, to promote peaceful coexistence among political parties. So we wrote to every party leader, including the president.
If in your I can prove in your article, Facebook page, I think it was on the Mama Kande's post, you did put collaboration and peaceful coexistence.
Well, collaboration in terms of promoting for reforms, obviously parties have to work together to ensure that the legal framework is right. If in that context, yes, collaboration to promote.
So you did collaborate. You did go to collaboration. Yeah, collaboration and coexistence.
If it's there, yes, it means. And what word follows after that?
That's what I just read to you.
It's important.
That's what I just read to you. Collaboration.
Collaboration. What did it write?
That's what I just read to you. Collaboration and peaceful coexistence.
And what after that?
I didn't go into that, but that is the generic.
That is why I said don't just pick a word and leave the context.
Yeah, but you said there was no collaboration though when there was. So
if it is, we've written a lot of things. We wrote a statement on Mama Kande, on Ladab, on Mama Mungjata. Obviously, I can't remember all these things. What I'm saying is that if collaboration is there, read the whole.
Yeah, it was.
And understand the context.
Okay, it was nothing how to call it. I've read the context. It's nothing how to call it about collaboration, as you probably might how to call it. You go into how to call it partnership or something like any of a sort.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. As long as that is right, that's fine.
Yeah. So anyway, how to call it? But have you received a response from President Barrow following your invitation?
We are still waiting.
Do you expect to receive an invitation from him, an acceptance from him?
I cannot speak for him.
Following how to call it, your attacks.
I cannot speak for him.
Right. Thank you. What I want to do now, I want to delve deeper into your manifesto and to dissect some of the premises that you have made in your 2021 manifesto. Now, it is a 68-page PDF document. Unfortunately, time prevents me from discussing all aspects of it, of course. But the listeners can visit the Citizen Alliance website at www.citizenalliance.gm to read the full document. However, there are some promises that I would like to discuss with you, if I may. Now, there are 4 pillars in your manifesto, namely Pillar 1, creating economic economic prosperity and decent jobs. Pillar 2, empowering the Gambian citizenry. Pillar 3, promoting good governance and transparency. And Pillar 4, ensuring peace, security, and stability. Let's take Pillar 1 for instance. Now, for example, in your manifesto, you did state that the Citizen Alliance will institute measures to reduce and ultimately eliminate foreign aid dependency. You then went on to tell us that your party will harness local resources to revitalize the Gambian economy and investments in agriculture, the environment, transportation, infrastructure, the arts, and the tourism, and that you will be creating 75,000 decent jobs across multiple sectors. What are these local resources that you are referring to, Dr. Ceesay, and where is the money going to come from?
Local resources. You have resources to make money. Resources are not to be watched, and you exploit the resources to make money. That is why Africa has been backward. The only resources you have from Congo to South Africa.
What resources do
people still live in poverty?
What resources does Gambia have?
Our marine resources are one.
Marine resources. Isn't the marine resources being taken by the Chinese? And now it's quite common to hear Gambians complain about lack of fish. For example, Jen Amut.
That is why we take it from them and build the world using our marine resources. That is why we are poor, because we give out our resources to foreigners to exploit. So we take it back and take ownership of our resources, our marine resources, our agro-industrial resources, our sand resources, our tourism industry, our human resources. We have a lot of resources in that country to tap and build on, to come up with the right systems and institutions to create the world needed to invest in people.
And what actions are you going to take against the Chinese for their brutal abuse of our oceans, rivers, and seas?
Well, we have to revisit the contract. Every contract has to follow due process, and anybody who is going to be dealing with us has to follow and respect our environmental laws and our labor laws. First and foremost, we'll take ownership of our resources. We make sure that our resources are harnessed by Gambians. Our marine sector is owned and controlled and run by Gambians, and they make profit from it and they build well from it. That is going to be our approach.
Now, this 70, I'm still trying to figure out where is all this money gonna come from to create this infrastructure, this great investment infrastructure that you're talking about, and this creation of 75,000 decent jobs. I'm still trying to figure it out, because article you gave me an example of our marine resources, but I've just told you there is no fish. So
who told you there is no fish?
Well, article the Gambians say that they had to feed Gen Amut.
No. I mean, so Jen Amul si Marte, does it mean there's no fish in
the but what times
it is one of the most fertile seabeds in the West African subcontinent.
Well, it may probably back in the day it might have, but nowadays it's questionable, isn't it?
No, I tell you, no, you don't have this issue is point. Not having Jen si Marte doesn't mean that Jen Amul si Gate. I mean, Jen Bunya is Gate, so you can't get into you.
But Jen
Yubu, Lord Mota Jen Amul si Marte. But there is enough gin in our ocean.
But particularly the Chinese have taken. This is why Dr. Ceesay, I tend to deal with people that work in the ports and work in the industry itself, and I shall be asking you questions about that later. So it is a big problem if you come into power. You, especially our marine, it is a very huge problem. The Chinese are actually abusing it grotesquely.
Well, that where we'll stop. We'll take ownership. That is why we say we're going to create 75,000 jobs from that. If Gambians are given the chance and given the equipment and training to run our money industry, we create jobs through that. We cannot be allowing our country, people, the Chinese, coming to exploit our fisheries resources for their own good, and we benefit nothing from it. We will stop that.
Are you going to be raising taxes if you come into power?
We'll do a tax reform. Whether it will be raised or reduced, we need to know when we get to power and see, behold, the entire tax regime. But then, I cannot tell you for sure now that we are going to raise taxes. What we'll do is we'll do some tax reforms and see the big companies have to pay their fair share. We need to know exactly who is paying what. Are the big 10 companies paying their fair share of tax or not? We need to disclose and know exactly how much each of these big companies are paying. Sometimes the market woman is paying more tax than most of these big companies, because the market woman, once she puts her vegetable on the floor, area council comes and say pay duty, even though she has not sold anything yet. But these big companies, we give them until the 8th, and we give them tax exemptions, we give exemptions to companies that are not supposed to get it. So we have to promote Gambian business, especially small, medium enterprises that are run by young Gambians.
So what fiscal...
To tell you whether we are going to increase tax or not, we are not sure about that. What we are going to do is to do
But you should have an idea, how to call it, at least done some fiscal research and find out how to call it, whether it will warrant, if you come into power, you will have to increase tax or reduce tax or get some money, get the investment somewhere else. And how to call it, you haven't done that, have you?
What I'm going to tell you is that we are going to do tax reforms. Whether we'll increase tax or not, depending on which sector and who is the target. But we cannot do wholesale tax increase. We cannot do that because it's going to affect some people badly, especially small, medium businesses. That is why I say we cannot give you a straightforward answer. That's why we're going to reduce tax or increase tax. But we'll do tax reforms and adjust tax accordingly. And people have to pay what they earn. Big businesses have to pay their fair share.
Right. Now, in your manifesto, you also talk about promoting wealth creation. Are you going to be giving out grants and subsidies and loans to help out small businesses? What are you going to do about it?
Yes, we'll ensure that there is access to finances. Most of our small businesses struggle because they lack access to finances.
Where is the finance going to come from?
Obviously, that's why I said, once you build the industrial base to make money, to create the wealth needed, you have to do it. You get also partners, international partners want to come and invest in that country. You create the opportunity for foreign direct investment. So there are huge opportunities in that sector, in that aspect.
And your manifesto also talks about establishing a diaspora remittance fund or bond. What do you mean by that?
Well, a fund where diaspora can tap into, where diaspora can, just like foreign direct investment. The diaspora come to invest their money into the Gambia. That is the fund we are talking about, where they can get access to invest their money. They get returns, obviously, but that money is used to invest in infrastructure, so they get good returns, just like foreign direct investment. But this one, instead of foreigners outside, Gambians who are living in the diaspora will be in charge.
So this one, how to call it, like, wouldn't it be somewhat what we currently have? Because it seems it's not that much different from what is currently going on, where Gambian diaspora, Gambian diaspora, they just send money back home for remittance and the family. But actually, in this case, the government will have a share in it. And
when you send remittances, you send to feed your family. You don't send it for that money to be invested. This one is about investment.
But shouldn't also the Gambian, how to call it, why would you be encouraging? Shouldn't be your government or the new Gambia at least be encouraging the diaspora, the Gambian living in diaspora to come back and live and how to call it, build the nation rather than still living abroad in other people's countries and how to call it, like sending you money or investing, so to, as you say.
But if you read the entire manifesto on diaspora, we have both approaches where we encourage Gambians to come back home, those with the technical capacity, with the knowledge, to come and invest their knowledge in education, health, infrastructure that is there. But also those who doesn't want to come home, also they have the chance to invest their money and they get return for their investment. So we have a dual approach. Now,
in your manifesto, you also talk a lot about creating public-private partnerships, e.g. the creation of insurance schemes to promote livestock and crop, and also marines and marines and fisheries, electricity, the road system, etc., etc. Dr. Ceesay, are you planning to privatize our entire public service?
You cannot privatize the public service. You cannot privatize certain strategic sectors like the health sector, education. You cannot do that. Obviously, but again, when it comes to certain sectors, you need investment, you need the capital, and government cannot be, sometimes doesn't have the capital. You need private investors to come and you partner with government to make it happen.
But are you aware that
talking about, let's say for example, you want to engage in a massive infrastructural development to build bridges, to build roads. You don't have the money. You have investors who want to come, and you partner with them. These are the public-private partnership. When it comes to the public, you cannot privatize the public sector. The public sector is to serve the public service.
Yeah, but you are practically prioritizing how to go thinking of privatizing a very core sector, so how to call it in our resources, and how to call it the sector, for example, electricity generation, the road system, the marines, and I'm sure you appreciate the danger of.
You live in the UK. Is the UK government still supplying people electricity?
Absolutely not.
There are certain sectors that will have to be privatized.
But that is what I'm coming to exactly. But that is what I'm coming to, Dr. Ceesay. I'm sure you appreciate the controversies surrounding public-private partnership over the years, where actually the public investment, the return on public investment actually is less than the private funder, and that is why it is so controversial.
Differentiate these two, the public service, and also we have what they call the public enterprise, the NAWEC, civil aviation, GRA, ports, social security. These are NAWEC, GAMJAL, these are, how do you call it, state enterprise. However, our approach there is different.
Yeah, but you are actually giving partnership.
All these where what?
You are working in partnership with private businesses to build certain infrastructure. For example, our road system, to generate electricity, our electricity system, and the marines and so forth. That's what your manifesto says. I'm reading it from your manifesto.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not disputing. That is our approach. If we want to engage in massive infrastructural development and we don't have all the money to do it, we work with private partners to fund it.
But that is what the danger of that, of course, is what is happening in Senegal, where actually the Senegalese road system, the péage, I think they call the péage, actually was built by the French. Now, what happened was the French actually get 70%, almost 70% of the revenue, and they will continue to get 70% of the revenue for the next 30 years. Until
and then it becomes the owner of the Senegalese.
That's correct. Yes. So at the end of the day, the French stand to gain more than what the Senegalese are earning, and it will take them years before they even actually.
No, that is debatable. If the French build it out of their total expenses and they get their profit back and it lives with the Senegalese, in the meantime they cut traffic congestion in the city of Dakar. People have more time. It improves business. It improves growth. These are effects as well.
But the benefit of the
totality.
But the benefit.
Even in the most developed countries, UK, even in EU, these are the things that they do. Governments don't.
Well, everything has been privatized in the UK, and they're suffering from it, and they're complaining a lot because everything is more expensive, and sometimes actually, and the service is not even good. So obviously,
What is your opinion? But this is still debatable. There are different schools of thought. There are different paradigms, economic paradigms, in terms of how to approach development.
But all the scientific paper, Dr. Ceesay, all the scientific paper on how to call it, public-private partnership has been negative, and how to call it FD, and even the how to call it the world.
I totally disagree with you on that. Can you name me one which is negative?
Well, how to call it?
All, no.
Well,
not all are negative. There are those that espouse that.
Senegal, for instance, I've just given you one example: the Senegal public system, and also the how to call it when Lawyers Bank was about to collapse there, and the how to call it, we have to bail it out. And at the end of the day, we actually had to call it end up. We didn't get our money back, and the bank came back asking for more money. So obviously, how to call it, like there are very, very few. Even the how to call it the World Bank is skeptical about it.
It is debatable. Anyway, I can tell you. But what I'm telling you is that any government that is serious, you need private partners to work and make things happen. That is you cannot dispute that. Government cannot do it. So you need private partners. How you do it and how you engage and do the contractual agreement is where the problem is. And not the engagement itself. Nothing is wrong with going into private partnerships to make things happen.
And how to call it, on regards to.
We have 2 minutes.
Yes, I know for that. How to call it, Dr. Ceesay, if you were to become president today, what changes would you make in your 4th year in office?
To build institutions. Our institutions, you see, if you don't have strong institutions as a country, you cannot build wealth, you cannot provide services to the people. We need to reform and build strong institutions. So our focus is building strong institutions to ensure that there's accountability, there's transparency, because these things will help us fight corruption. Helping fight corruption means that we save more money, and now you can invest in critical sectors. So for us, it's focusing on institutional reforms and building strong institutions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ceesay. Thank you very much for speaking to Seereer Radio. And
thank you, Tamsier.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nun we nangil wa Seereer Radio o nyohur no Seereer fop.
Dubi seduk Seereer Radio hosorki Seereer ti jen.
Vous écoutez Seereer Radio, la voix de la communauté Seereer.
You are listening to Seereer Radio, the voice of the Seereer community.
Tata ginange no he isa salingo lo hon komine to yakari